Hello everyone, my name is Sherif Mansour. I am OWASP Treasurer. I'm running again for the OWASP board. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself and then I'll answer some of your questions. So the first of all, I've been an OWASP member for about 11 years. I have been an OWASP chapter leader for London for one of the larger chapters for about 3 years now. And I've been in AppSec for quite a while, so I have 15 years of experience in information security, and specifically I used to lead the Expedia's application security program. Right now I help secure critical financial infrastructure. So there's a couple of questions here that you have that I'd like to answer. So the first one is, what are the three biggest challenges you think OWASP is facing right now, and how do you think we can solve them? So the first problem that we have in general is that feels like we are doing AppSec to maintain a foundation rather that we have a foundation to do AppSec. And what I mean is that we should be doing more and we should be focusing on what we're spending and where, rather than worrying about how much funds we have to be able to keep a foundation alive. Now, those are table stakes, of course, but the whole reason why we're doing it is to improve the state of application security. So there's a couple of things that we can do. So one of the biggest challenges in the past is that there was a big fear about raising grants because everything is done by the community. But that's not necessarily correct, and also even with the community, there are a lot of things that you can raise grants for, and I'll give you an example. So this year I have set up the AWS account for the OWASP Foundation, and there are a few projects like ZAP that are using it. You can raise funds for those. You can say that every year we spend this much money on resources and operating costs, and we need to be able to do that to continue the work that Simon and everyone else is doing. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So another example is online training, being able to generate open source online training content and having a platform as well that is open source is another example of some of the things that we can do as a community to raise grants for scholarships, project events and so forth. So those can raise grants. On top of it, there were some concerns with the foundation as to, well, that's going to take a lot of work. Well, the answer to that is, for any of those grants, you can also set aside as part of that 10 to 15% for operating costs. So a lot of charities work this way, and this is one of the things that we should do, is that we should really focus our effort a little bit more on alternative revenue streams and alternative ways of actually improving the mission of AppSec, because right now what we're doing is we have the local projects and events continuing as they are and doing a great job, and then the foundation would be hosting large events, cashing in, hosting large events, cashing in, helping maintaining the projects and the chapters, but never really pushing the needle on security, and this is the direction that we need to move towards. So that's one big challenge that we have. The second one is the engagement between the community and the board and the foundation. So one of the things that we can do are committees. It would be nice that we have a central place and working group between the foundation and the chapters and also the projects and maybe the events as well, in order to have like a conversation. Some of the challenges I've seen is that a project or a chapter leader would say that he's been waiting on something, or that person gets a little bit frustrated and realize this was actually quite a easy fix. So if you've looked at the leaderboard, sometimes I've stepped in one or two cases to help with the board, even as recently as about 2 weeks ago as well. So the committees are a way of actually having that dialogue and smoothing these things out, but also empowering the community to shape the direction of OWASP. So this is one area that we need to help at. And then the final place, in order to maintain sort of a good level of governance and sort of level of harmony between the community and the foundation, is also being able for the foundation to write up and establish fair and reasonable uses for expenses, like improving basically the handbook so that the chapter leaders actually know what we do. But for example, if you're a chapter leader listening to this, how many of you knew that there are $200,000 right now available for any project and any chapter, irrespective of how much funds you have, you can request for funds. So this information needs to be more available. It needs to be also the workflows and how to make these types of requests need to be streamlined and available, but also just know what's the fair thing to do. It's equally the same on the regional events. So one of the things that the foundation is trying to do is sort of streamline the way that we support the regional events and being able to have like an equitable split, because I know that there are some times where some things that the foundation do or spend on that they're not necessarily taken into account in the overall budget. So therefore, there's more money that gets set aside to the chapters or events, and as a result, that money sort of isn't well utilized. I'll get more to the finance in a second, but I'll just quickly go through the other questions. So the second question is, many say that the O in OWASP stands for open, and that we must remain open at all costs. In the past, this has resulted in known bullies to persist within our community. Do you feel that remaining open is more or less equal important to ensuring a safe, respectful, and harassment-free community, and why? So, first of all, I think that having a safe, respectful, and harassment-free community trumps everything else. In my mind, you won't have a good community if you that is satisfying the mission if you're having bullies running rampant. The second thing is, I think there's a misunderstanding with the O and open. It's the Open Web Application Security Project, not the Open Bully Project. And the spirit of that word open is for open source projects, open source content, open source best practices, that we don't charge people for this. This is a non-profit. Not necessarily open everything, including people's right to privacy. That's just not part of it. And for us at the board, for example, we do have the public meetings every month, but also we have executive meetings where if there are HR issues, if there are issues that the compliance committee bring up to us, that is held private to also ensure the privacy of some of these people that are victimized, and making sure that that's resolved in a professional manner and making it a safe environment for everyone. So no, absolutely, there shouldn't be room for bullies to run rampant, and equally the people that are out of line should be held to account. The third question is, how do you hope and plan to improve the OWASP financial situation? So I hinted about this before in the first question, but the first thing is to look at alternative revenue streams. So the first thing that I want to do is to make sure that we are raising grants and having reasons for members to donate to us. So that's the first thing, is to be able to create larger initiatives for grants and find interesting projects and community members that want to be able to do something, and then we can get the resources and consultant and help to be able to carry those out. So that's the first thing that we want to do, and that both helps the financial situation, because you can also ask for the operating costs, so the foundation doesn't necessarily lose anything from doing this, but you're actually doing a good to the rest of the world. The second one is sort of improving sort of the site, the way to be able to pull donations from there and giving sort of membership value to entice and encourage members to come, and also improve the workflow and the membership registration. So when you are actually in a country with lower GDP, or if you're a student, it's a little bit easier and clearer how you do it. Right now, the renewal feature also on the site is broken, which isn't helpful. So there are some things that we can do to continue that. But the final thing is, there's a couple of things there. First of all, lowering the operational cost on the foundation side, And the other thing is easing up or changing a few things with regards to how we allocate budgets for the chapters to make sure that things can flow. There's actually more liquidity and also fluidity. And what I mean by that is that the chapter spent about 160,000 a year, a little bit more than that. But with this year, what we've done is we've put in 200,000 as a community bucket. Anyone who will ask for funds will get it. We're trying to refine that a little bit more so that essentially the community are able to. There's a little bit of equity, equality, and fairness there. And also for the larger projects and chapters, that they have a little bit more freedom to do what they want. And that goes back to also having guidelines on fair and reasonable expenses, reason to ask for expenses, so that people who don't even have funds can actually make those requests. And for larger projects and larger chapters, they have an idea of what they should and should not spend on, and just some better direction essentially from the foundation, which would be fair. Like the foundation for a while hasn't done that, and we've had heated and passionate debates on the board on that to make sure that it's fair for everyone, especially the community and the larger chapters that are contributing, but also maintainable from the foundation's perspective. And I hope we can actually find a solution soon, and Mike McKinnon is working hard on that. And then the fourth question is, how do you hope / plan to better support and encourage OWASP projects, chapters, and staff? So with another question as well, the first and most important question answer to this is you ask them. You ask the staff, you ask the project leaders, you ask the chapter leaders what they want, and you try to build that. The second one is for the staff, is that you give them direction. So that's the most important thing as a board member, is that you dictate direction and the strategy for the foundation. So the best thing that we can do for the staff is give them a direction and empower them to be able to succeed. So an example, the foundationers now is updating the website. They're not doing 1,000,001 things. They're running, keeping the lights on, and they're updating the website. Once they're done with the website, they take on another improvement for OWASP, but also every improvement will make both the community's life easier and their lives easier, and that allows them to take on and leverage and actually gain more momentum. For the chapters, there's a lot that we can do. The main one is being able to have a central committee that they can come in and voice their concerns, communicate with the board and the foundation, but also above and beyond that, that they are able to do and collaborate and shape the direction of the community as they see fit. One of them is that we have a pool of 200,000. We try to maintain that every year. They can talk about what are the things that they can do to spend it and like help with the projects. The same thing, giving them resources. So this year I set up an AWS account. We need to build that a little bit better, get more funding for it, and help projects who actually would need it. If they need any more resources, we can help build that as well. And a project committee would also help shape the direction of where they want to go. Number 5 is, how do you hope and plan to improve the OWASP community? We've had some angry projects, chapter and community members. How do you hope to plan and improve the community relations and relationships? So this is actually near and dear to my heart. There's a couple of things that needs to be taken into account. First of all, the foundation needs to be able to set the best practices, improve the chapter handbook and the standards and practices, basically. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they need to be able to work and improve the workflows on that side to make sort of their requests and the ability to get things clear, seamless, and transparent. There's a couple of things like the workflows for being able to pay invoices and so forth that have been sorted out, but there's a lot more to do there. On the community side, there's a lot of things that can also be done. So being able to protect people from bullies, especially there was a few incidences last year that the board had to step in and deal with. And one of the things that we've done is sort of empower the compliance committee to also get more support if they need to. And that way that those things get resolved a little bit quicker, and that people know that these things will be addressed. And the committees in general will also help that, because the committees will be able to step in as well to basically communicate faster with the board and the foundation when there is a problem, rather than the board having to step in because of something that was said during in the leaders list, because something slipped through the cracks. So the committees will also be helped with that greatly. So the number 6, which is something near and dear to my heart, which is how do you plan to draw more diverse group of newcomers to OWASP: women, people of color, non-binary, students, second career, LGBT, people with disabilities, other groups that are underrepresented in both our industry and our community. How do you hope and plan to attract them to your community, events, foundation, and projects and chapters? So the first thing is you would ask them. You would go to these members and sort of the community members and ask them, how could I make your life easier? And then find ways of doing it. I know for the London chapter, for example, we've talked about getting some advice on sort of gender diversity, and eventually one of our outgoing chapter leaders decided to recommend that Andra becomes the new chapter leader for us as well, and that made a world of difference. We now have specific local events every other month that coincides 1 week apart from sort of the chapter events, and that has done a world of difference. We ourselves try to make sure that we are proactive about it. So, and that is one key thing, is being proactive and making an effort to understand the needs of the community and the diverse community, and being able to do it. And then the second thing, being able to have a safe and comfortable environment for them to be involved. So having a zero tolerance on bullying and breaches of our code of ethics is also really important to make sure people are safe and confident and they're able to participate. So 2 more. So number 7, how do you plan to improve the apps at global events? Do you feel they need improving? There's a few places that they need improving. So the first one is they need to be planned way more in advance. The second thing is we need to be able to anticipate some of the operational expenses, being able to pick hotels, for example, that are not over the moon, depending on where we're going. And also we need to be able to focus more on projects. So what I would like to also see are project specific global events, and hopefully we'll be able to do one next year. And then number 8 is, how do you plan to handle massive stress, time, responsibility of being an OWASP board member on top of your professional duties? How many hours a week do you plan to dedicate specifically to the role of the OWASP board member? So I think the first thing is, I've already been a board member and OWASP chapter leader for so long. The main thing why it isn't stressful for me is because I love it. I love actually helping the community. I have helping and deal with some of these challenges and empowering the community. The other one is that I'm fairly organized, that I try to plan my time and my days ahead of time so that I can dedicate enough time. I usually spend a little bit of time every week with the OWASP London chapters. I try to reach out to the foundation on a regular basis and have touch points, and I have a Trello board that basically organizes my time in there, but predominantly it's because it doesn't actually feel like work that I actually dedicate quite a lot of time for it. So I hope I get your votes, and thank you for listening. Bye.